Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us today for this webinar, FeatureOps as a Strategy, Governing Hypergrowth at Lloyd's. My name is Nick Stannard. I lead our customer organization at Unleash, and on behalf of everyone at Unleash, we're excited to have you here today. We are very lucky to be joined by Daniel Woollery, who is Head of Digital Services at Lloyd's. Lloyds Banking Group is one of the UK's largest and most established financial institutions with literally hundreds of years of history. As you can imagine, they are undergoing a digital transformation at scale, and that is what we're going to talk about today. In particular, Daniel will discuss how FeatureOps has evolved from a set of technical practices based on feature flags into a strategic capability for governing growth in complex, regulated environments. Couple logistical things before we get started. Yes, this webinar will be recorded, and everyone who is registered will get a copy. And you can ask questions in the chat. We will try to get to all the questions, but if we don't, we will follow up, so please ask away. With that being said, I'd like to turn it over to Daniel.
That is brilliant. Thank you so much, Nick. Can everyone hear me? You can hear me, right? Fantastic. That's great news. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you so much for having me. It's really, really great to be here today, and I'm looking forward to taking you guys on the journey of how FeatureOps has impacted Lloyd's and how we're using it in partnership with Unleash. So thank you so much for being here. So let's get started. I thought the best thing to do to get started will give people a little bit of an intro about who I am, so people know who I am, what I do, and my position in Lloyd's and the kind of things that we are looking for in Lloyds Banking Group. So my name is Daniel Woollery. Daniel or Dan is fine, but never Danny. I am the head of digital services at Lloyds Banking Group. What that means on a day-to-day basis is that I am responsible for our lab, which is called Digital Services, and that's got around circa 200 people across the UK and India. And we look after the infrastructure that other areas across the bank deploy their code to in order to deliver changes to our customers. So that code base that people deliver their code to in order to deliver functionality to our customers, we often refer to as the monolithic code base. And we're currently going on a journey to modernize our digital estate, migrating onto cloud so that our product owners and journey owners can look after their own journeys end to end, rather than being dependent on releases of this monolithic code base. Because this monolithic code base has a lot of limitations in terms of we can only deliver maybe every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks, rather than offering the optimum flexibility that they would like. And that leads on to how we're now using FeatureOps today and why we ended up partnering with Unleash. But before we get into that, let me give you a little bit about my background and how I ended up to where I am today. So I started off at university many, many, many years ago doing a degree for philosophy and theology. Nothing to do with technology, I hear you say. My original plan was actually to do a conversion course to law. And so I started doing a corporate law internship at a company called Clifford Chance, who I'm sure many of you have heard of. Had a really, really good time working there, but decided that corporate law didn't really float the boat for me. So then I moved into Merrill Lynch, doing investment banking. And even through those different companies, there was a lot of experience I gained there. But the main place that I settled in was IBM. So when I was working at IBM, that was where I began my technology journey and brought in some of the experience I had in some of the financial institutions. So when we were at IBM, everybody learned C++, Java, SQL. I'm not sure if some people on the call maybe have also worked at IBM or had some experience there. Fantastic company. And was great for me to start my career off as well. And one of the first products I worked on was DVLA, Driver and Vehicle Licensing Agency in the UK, for some of you who are not from here. And that's predominantly I started doing testing. Then I moved into Santander, another bank in the UK as well, doing business analysis before I moved into Nationwide as a project management, and then moving into Lloyd's. So that experience over, I'd say about 10, 15 years or so, built up my technological experience, built up my experience in the finance industry, and that helped shape and get me into the role that I'm in today. Now, when I moved into Lloyds Banking Group, which was about over a decade ago, generally I've always worked in digital. So when I started digital, it was quite a small department then. Back then, it was just seen as something small, maybe a bit of a website, just desktop. Whereas today, digital is across everything, be it retail, commercial, investment, wealth banking, it is in everything. But it was my team that launched our first mobile banking app. which was a huge milestone for us, rather than just looking after the website. And then as I progressed after that, moved into project management, moved into implementation, and actually shaped what is called the monolithic code base today. Back then, it was massive to be able to release once every quarter. That was a massive milestone. And then moving that to once every month was seen back then as agile, but very different to where we are today, where we want to deliver when ready, which FeatureOps comes in to play a massive part in that. So I continued within that digital role, moved into more strategic roles in the last few years, and that's landed me in the head of digital services today, where I get to combine my strategic experience and my technical experience, bringing that together to make the right decisions for what we do within digital services. Now, within Lloyds Banking Group, Lloyds isn't just one brand, there are multiple brands. So for those of you that may not be familiar, I'll just give you a view of that. And so you can see the scope of what we're working with. And so when we're talking about the feature ops as well, we can begin to see how many customers that actually impacts on a day-to-day as we deliver our functionality as part of the work that we do. So when I think about the history of Lloyds Banking Group, as Nick alluded to, it spans back 100 years, hundreds of years across the UK. So Lloyds Banking Group started within 1695, which is over 400 years, and it's had an incredible impact on the UK over that time. But the key thing I want to mention for today is that Lloyds Banking Group consists of three main retail brands. So that's Lloyds, Bank of Scotland, and Halifax. They are well-known brands across the UK. But I've also mentioned Scottish Widows on there, which provides pensions, life insurance, and investment products. So these are like our main brands. Overall, there's 16 unique ones, but these are the main ones that we work with the main customers, and how we are actually utilizing a lot of the feature ops piece as well that we'll go into more detail as we progress through this call today. So if I just take you quickly through a little bit of a history of Lloyds, the main reason I wanted to go through this is historically there are a lot of firsts within Lloyds Banking Group. So for example, Bank of Scotland was the first bank in Scotland in 1695. Lloyds Banking Group was also the first bank in Birmingham in 1765, and Scottish Widows continues to be the oldest life assurance company, originating in 1815. So Lloyds Banking Group has a lot of firsts. It's been the first to do many, many things and continues to do so. As we fast forward to 1995, Lloyds Bank merged with TSB and then became bigger in terms of having Lloyds Banking Group. And then in 2001, merged with Halifax and Bank of Scotland. And so the group continued to expand as we moved over the next few years. So today, when we talk about Lloyds Banking Group, that's why it's got all of those brands. But I think the key thing to mention is that in 2013, TSB separated from Lloyds Banking Group, which is why I didn't mention it in those brands that we have today. So Lloyds continued to be the first for many, many things. It was the first to issue paper money with set values. It was the first bank to install a computer. It was the first to launch a cash point. And when I talk about this first, I'm talking generally first within the UK rather than globally. But that's still really important for the UK in terms of the precedent it set and the innovation it's been leading for over the past 400 years. And even more recently, in the year 2000, Bank of Scotland was the first UK bank to pilot mobile banking on the WAP mobile phones, for those of you who remember WAP. And in 2014, Lloyds Bank was the first UK bank to pilot fingerprint identity access for its banking apps on Apple phones. So those are really significant milestones and show how important being leaders and innovation is for Lloyds. And we like that to be the front and center of what we've done as an organization, and continue for that to be the case. So when I think about where Lloyds is today, here are some key stats around who we are and what we've achieved and some of the things that we're focusing on. So as I mentioned, even though there's those three main banking brands and Scottish Widows as well, we have 16 unique brands, and we serve over 23 million digitally active customers, which is huge, especially when you think about how big the UK is, with only 67 million people within the UK. 23 million being digitally active is absolutely huge. And in 2025, we hit our record of having 6.5 billion logons from 31.9 million customers who are registered for internet banking. So this isn't just about being big and having really big numbers. Like, this is market leading stuff. And I think these numbers show the trust and resilience that customers put on us every single day. And not only do the customers trust us, but we invest in our customers within the UK. So as part of our commitment to making Britain prosper, with £20 billion invested to support social housing since 2018, and over 800 million donated to charitable foundations in the past 40 years. So when we think about the investment that we put into the UK and how much our customers trust us, that's really important, because we want to make sure we do the right thing for our customers, especially when it comes to the functionality that we deliver to them that they use every single day. So regarding technology, 50% of our applications across their estate have now transitioned to cloud, and 90% of our current applications are through the mobile app as opposed to desktop, and 35% improvement in our release times is through Agile. And that 35% number I'll bring up later, because FeatureOps and the work we've been doing with Unleash has contributed to that 35% as well, and will continue to contribute as we continue to grow throughout this year and next year and land our strategy for the next few years. So when I think about our colleagues as well, we invest in those and make sure that we want to make sure we've got a lot of colleagues that understand technology and understand data. And with that, we've had over 8,000 tech data hires since 2021. So the organization is really investing in technology and ensuring that we can deliver at pace, we can deliver faster and quicker, but safely for customers at the moment. So scale, resilience, innovation, and impact. That's what makes us the UK leader in digital banking. And it's with these values that we chose to partner with Unleash for FeatureOps. So today we are in partnership with our lovely hosts, Unleash, for FeatureOps. And we started this marvelous partnership around 3 years ago. And we chose to work with them because of the excellent FeatureOps capabilities that they provide. So let's have a look at why we went for Unleash and why we chose to partner with them today. In 2023, we had a little bit of a challenge. We were beginning the transition of moving our applications to cloud and needed to replace our existing feature switch control system. We wanted to replace it with something more agile, with easy integration and simplicity that would help us on our cloud journey. After a lot of deliberation and research, we chose Unleash because they were straightforward and efficient, with excellent security and compliance controls. The way their compliance controls have been built means approval workflows are a lot faster than what we had in place. So it allowed us to ensure we have the right compliance and governance and still deliver at pace without cutting any corners. And the reason I want to highlight that is I think often it's important to be efficient and reflect on whether we have the right governance, but what Unleash offered made sure that we could do those things faster. We didn't have to cut out governance, we didn't have to cut corners, but it allowed us to do things faster while keeping those workflows and that governance in place, which meant sure we still had those same controls in place, and we're able to make sure that we still had that safety and security we wanted to deliver to our customers. So it was very easy for us to work with Unleash and broker a relationship. And especially given that they had a very intuitive and innovative UI design for the feature management tool. In addition to their feature management tool, there are multiple capability offerings that provide a more enhanced and rich experience for feature management. And it's very, very easy to also implement change and roll back features. The capabilities that Unleash offered us were more than what we have. And even to this day, we're not using all of those capabilities yet, mainly because we haven't experimented with them. There's so many capabilities there, and a lot of those are on the roadmap for our product owners to begin to use, to think about how they control their change and roll it back in different ways. But it's rich in capability, and we're very excited to experimenting with more of those capabilities later this year. But our main focus as a bank has been utilizing the feature management tools for enabling and rolling back features, and that has been absolutely fantastic during 2025 and has allowed us again to do things quicker and safer when we've needed to implement change, but also when we've been able to roll back as well. And I think from the feedback we've had, one of the additional capabilities that our consumers are quite excited about is A/B testing, the ability to be able to present different things to customers, to test different things. One of the things they want to think about is, can we present different things to customers based on their age or based on their demographic? And there's lots of things that we can trial doing because of the capabilities that the FeatureOps is provided to us by Unleash, which is very exciting, especially for many of our consumers. So when I think about why Unleash, as we said there, it's very much about it being simple, it's fast, it's efficient. They have excellent security controls, very, very innovative design, and really and truly, it's quick and easy to do the things that we need to do. And that was what was core for what our consumers want. And that's really, really core for us to be able to deliver when ready to our customers. So we've been working together for more than 3 years. And I think, I'll be honest, in the beginning, I thought working with Unleash was just going to be about feature flags. I can turn some switches on and off because that's what our previous capability was. But actually, I must admit, I've been humbled. I was very, very wrong. Not only has their switch control system been better and the additional capabilities I've mentioned about, but at Lloyd's, we've been able to decentralize our processes quicker, driving federation to enable journey owning labs to have end-to-end autonomy and ownership of their journeys and deliver faster to customers. That is really, really important because before we were limited by that monolithic code base. So they had to wait for the monolith to deliver every 3 weeks. Even if they had something ready, they had to get that slot and they had to wait for that slot. And when that went live, if there was one thing wrong, all of the functionality would have to be rolled back. Whereas part of that federation means that that product owner of that journey, they can deliver their change to customers when it's ready. And if there's a journey elsewhere that has an issue or has a defect, it doesn't impact the other journey being rolled back or having to change what they've done. And that's been really, really beneficial for our product owners, for our engineering leads, for software engineers, DevOps, and for our teams, just being able to deliver quicker and make sure that they're not impacted by other areas when there are issues or challenges that we have. So with this modernization of the digital estate, FeatureOps has really allowed teams to also do their testing independently as well. So alongside being able to deliver independently, they can test independently, they can trial different things within their testing. There's so many things that the multiple workflows allow us to do, especially now that they're decentralized. And I think that's really, really key thing that FeatureOps has given us alongside the control of switches and feature flags and things like that. So since that partnership in the past 3 years, we've had excellent feedback from our developers and engineers and consumers. So as a result of that, we now have over 1,000 users utilizing our FeatureOps offering across 20 platforms across the organization, which is huge. And I think now new journeys are being created on that FeatureOps because people are very excited about what it has to offer. And they love the fact that when they create those new journeys, they're not limited by what was there before, and they can innovate and deliver at pace and fail fast where necessary to make sure that they're coming up with the right thing for our customers. FeatureOps hasn't just provided us with feature flags and controlling switches, but it's also enabled new cultural practices, which have enabled our teams to work more collaboratively, be more experimental, and also not be afraid to try new things to deliver the right things for our customers. And I think that's been the main feedback that we've had around the FeatureOps, which has been a surprise for us, given that we thought the main thing we were getting was a feature flags management tool. So the partnership has been fantastic, and FeatureOps have been key in our cloud migration journey as well, enabling product owners to own their journeys, to deploy things to cloud, be it they want to use GCP or Azure, or they're not limited to things that the monolith would have limited to them to before. And they no longer have to rely on a central team. I think previously there was a central team that had to deliver things because they had access to that monolithic code base and there was a centralized process, but actually now they can deliver independently for their own customers and they control their features separate from the other features, whether they want to roll them out in one go or they want to do a phased rollout. It's about what they see fit, and they have that control and the governance and the right things in place to deliver things for their own journeys rather than being dependent on those centralized tools. And I think that's fantastic because for us, that's well over 600 journeys across the three main brands that are being able to receive those benefits. And really see how we can improve those changes and functionalities and things that we offer the customers. So yeah, that has brought about great consumer feedback for our internal users, and in turn allowing them to deliver change at pace and safely to our customers. So going forward, we plan to continue to work with Unleash. We're having a great time on this journey in this partnership with Unleash, and the FeatureOps has been very, I'd say, transformational as it's become a strategic capability for us as an organization. And the benefits, as I've mentioned, have been both for internal consumers and for our external customers as well. So in 2025, as I've mentioned, FeatureOps has enabled us to have a more simplified operational model for delivery, for federating the ownership of the features to the journey owners in the rightful labs, and allowing them to remove that dependency on the monolithic code base. This in turn has allowed features to be delivered faster, independently, and allowed customers to receive much, much quicker functionality, which is a lot of feedback. A lot of our customers felt like they weren't getting the functionality as quick as some of our competitors, and now that's changed because of FeatureOps. And I think the Journey owners have also been very, very happy with how things have been going. So we're going to continue to do that into 2026. But when we think about what we're doing this year, we want to experiment more with those capabilities that we haven't used yet. I think I mentioned that at the beginning of this call. Some of those things such as A/B testing, some of those other things that can allow us to have a more rich offering for our customers. We'll continue to migrate more applications to cloud supported by FeatureOps and retire some of the legacy systems you were using before. And I think one of the key things is that actually with this FeatureOps management that we have now, that allows us to set the foundation for what we want to do with Gen AI in the future, and allows us quite a big playground to experiment and try different things and shape things as we work out what those things look like for us in 2026. So in conclusion, FeatureOps has proven to be very beneficial for us, and we plan to continue to use it and see continued improvement, especially with our release times through Agile and our migration of further applications onto cloud. And I think that's why we're seeing that improvement with those numbers there. That's why we've been able to see things a lot quicker. And that's why we see the benefit, not only for our internal consumers, but also for our external ones as well. So I'm conscious I've been talking to you for about 20 minutes or so. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions or anything that anybody has. Go back to you then, Nick.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel, so much for sharing the story. It was amazing to hear. And I think on behalf of all of us at Unleash, we enjoy the partnership with you as well and couldn't be more excited about the future with the team at Lloyd's. Daniel, I have a couple questions coming in. I think we can start there. Would love to get your take on some of these. So I'm actually just going to jump right in. First question. Lloyd's originally managed feature flagging through an internal homegrown solution, as you alluded to earlier. What was the specific tipping point where you realized you wanted to have a more bespoke tool, or that you realized that a bespoke tool could no longer keep pace with the digital transformation, and what made Unleash the right strategic partner in that transition?
Wow, it's a good question. So I think the specific tipping point was when we realized that with the monolithic code base and the release system we had in place, we couldn't go faster. So we had started off doing change every 6 months, then once a quarter, then once a month, and we pushed it to the limit to 3 weeks. But because of the way the monolithic code base works, we couldn't go any faster. And it's very clear that in this today's age, our competitors were going faster. Many people were going faster than 3 weeks. So we were like, if we want to continue to be a leader, we have to change something. So what is it that we can change? And that was the tipping point. That was the thing that made us think, right, we need to start working with somebody else who would be a great partner. And I think through the research of some of the things that Unleash offered, that's what led us to working with Unleash, because we reached that tipping point and thought we need something quite quickly that can turn this around for us. So yeah, good question. But that was the tipping point for us.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that too. And I know from an Unleash perspective, we're always trying to help all of our partners release with speed and making sure that you have control over those releases. So thank you so much for sharing your perspective there around the tipping point. Another question, Daniel. Pretty good question. Very relevant for the work that you and the Lloyd's team are doing. In a highly regulated industry like banking, governance is often viewed as a brake on speed. how has elevating feature ops to a strategic capability changed that? Are you seeing your governance model act more as an enabler for innovation rather than a hurdle? Would love to hear just your perspective there.
That's an interesting one, actually, because when we started thinking about using feature ops, we were worried that it would involve cutting some corners. So stripping out of some of the governance, or we would overlook some of the governance that we needed to make sure we had the right control and the right safety for our customers. But I think what's been really good about feature ops and making it the strategic capability is that it doesn't strip out the governance. It still allows you to keep that governance, but work quicker. So the workflows that we have, the processes that we have, actually, there's been some places where we've had to do, okay, is that really the right thing? We can be efficient there. But the ones
Right.
that we wanted to keep in place, actually, FeatureOps didn't force us to remove them, but they made it quicker. So it removed those delays, it reduced some of those time frames, and still allowed us to keep that governance and those controls there, but allowed us to do it quicker. So it's something that we're actually no longer worried about, but it's been very, very good having that in place now as well.
I think kind of in keeping with that theme, Daniel, certainly we know there is never a shortage of good projects to work on at Lloyd's. I thought you did a great job sharing some of the awesome projects that you and the team are working on and have worked on. When you think about your work at Lloyd's overall, why was FeatureOps prioritized? And when you think about, you've talked a lot about how you've been able to continue the velocity that you need to release code at the speed that you want to. What would be a delay for maybe an organization of your size? What's something to potentially look out for?
So the reason that we prioritized feature ops was because it impacted so many different things across the organization. What I
Mm.
mean by that is that monolithic code base that we had, it impacted retail, it impacted commercial. It meant that everything we were doing across the organization from a digital perspective was limited by this bottleneck, right? And so we're like, how can we alleviate that? And that's why we were able to
Mhm.
prioritize the feature ops. So
Very
once
cool.
that feature ops was in place, people then were able to see, wow, like this can move very, very quickly. Conversely, if we didn't do that, that would mean that there were many things that we would deliver that would be delayed to market, right? Because
Right.
we couldn't deliver those things quick enough because of that bottleneck. So that's why we prioritized it, because it impacted so many different facets across the organization, especially as they began to adopt digital over the more recent years.
Right. Right. Very helpful. Love kind of the perspective there around prioritizing feature ops. Shifting into the next question, Daniel, here's a shocker. We have a Gen AI question. I'm sure you didn't see that one coming. No one's talking about it at all right now. Um, within engineering teams. So the question here, kind of shifting gears into Gen AI, with the industry's focus on Gen AI, we'd love to hear how Lloyd's is using FeatureOps as a safety lever to experiment with AI-driven development while maintaining the strict compliance and risk standards that are required in financial services.
Good question, and I knew that Janai would come up. So I think with feature ops for us in relation to Gen AI, feature ops works as a foundation for us. It's like the foundation for us to do the building blocks. And I think as an organization, we're still on the journey as to what we're doing with Gen AI. But what feature ops allows for us is that play pin where we can actually experiment and do different things in a safe way in our testing environments. Because of those additional capabilities that FeatureOps has allowed us, the way it's impacted the culture and allowed a lot of our engineers to experiment more, it means that that foundation allows us to experiment more and shape more with what we can do with Gen AI before we decide what we're actually going to release and use in one of our customers, one of our products for external customers. So yeah, the answer for me is FeatureOps acts as a very good foundation for us to experiment and try different things before we decide how we're going to go forward with Gen AI.
Very cool. Very cool. And love to hear how you at Lloyd's are working and focusing on experimentation to deliver the best experience for your customers. Certainly excited to see where you guys continue from a Gen AI perspective. Another good question. You kind of described this transformation as a story of cultural change as much as a technology change. How has the developer experience at Lloyd's changed now that FeatureOps has moved from just an isolated team usage into a broader experience?
That's that's a great question. So going back to the monolithic code base, that was controlled by a central team, right? So we had a central team and a central process, which means only those central teams had access to it. So our developers and our engineers didn't have access to it. And because it only happened every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks, you had to get everything right. Otherwise, you'd have to wait another 3 weeks. So
Right.
the culture was very much, we have to get this right. It's very restrictive. There isn't room for experimentation because if you don't hit this one, you have to go to the next one. Bringing in FeatureOps not only allowed for us to hand over that control to the engineers, to the developers, obviously in the safe and right way, but they then were in control of deploying things into production. They then could experiment more and test because it wasn't, if you miss this, you'll then have to wait another 3 weeks or whatever. You can now
Right.
experiment, right? Do we want all of our customers to have this functionality? Do we want to do something different for our older customers in terms of our younger customers for different demographics? And so then because they have that culturally, when they're designing things, they can be like, actually, we can experiment with this a little bit more because when we put it into FeatureOps and use that tool, we can try out different things before we decide whether we're going to do certain things, whether we want to do a proof of concept and all of that good stuff. Whereas previously, not saying that it was impossible for us to do proof of concepts, we could do them, but it would be a much longer time, right? You would have to do it like months in advance and plan how you're going to do it for 6 months with all of those different monthly vehicles that would be available for releases. Whereas now that's a lot shorter because of what we're doing with FeatureOps, and then in turn changes the cultural ways of thinking for our developers and our engineers and our product owners, which is a benefit for everybody, really. So, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And as someone that's been fortunate to partner with you over the last 3 years as part of our partnership, I certainly know how passionate you are about creating a developer experience. And so it's been awesome to see how you've worked really, really hard to really provide that experience and really allow all of your devs to get experimentation opportunities to build the best products possible. So very cool. A couple more, Daniel, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. Another question. Did you employ a continuous delivery setup on your transformation journey? Was this before or after you decided on using Unleash feature flags? Maybe you could just tell a little bit more about this in the context of compliance and how feature flags and a potential CI/CD pipeline bring you benefits in a highly regulated industry.
Haha. So the answer to that is yes and no, and it's not a cop out. The reason is because we have different types of changes because it's such a big organization. So we employed continuous delivery setup for some of the changes we did, especially some of the more microservice changes, the smaller changes. There was a lot more continuous delivery with that, but some of the
Mhm.
more monolithic, the back end infrastructure changes that we had did not have that. So
Right.
some of that has been refined and changed and transformed by what we've done by FeatureOps, but there were some things that we were already doing, especially some of the smaller changes and microservice changes where we did actually already employ a continuous delivery setup for our transformation journey. So the answer is yes and no, because yes, some things we had already employed that for, but there are other areas where we struggled to, where FeatureOps has helped us do that and bring them up to level with the bits that we have done.
And I think that makes sense with the monolithic code base and how you're trying to design the entire program as a whole.
Yeah.
I'm smiling, Daniel, because I knew we'd get a Gen AI question, and I felt like I knew we'd get a CI/CD question as well. So appreciate you sharing your thoughts there. Just a couple more here. One question from the audience is, do you plan on deploying the monolithic more often going forward? What are your plans on breaking up the monolith?
That's a good question. No, I can't give away all of our trade secrets, right? Some of these things you have to wait and see what we do with in the future. That would be telling. Um, but we are planning to continue to use both. So we haven't got rid of everything altogether. We're moving on to a kind of a cloud journey and transforming our estate. The monolith hasn't completely gone away. Will it completely go away? Don't sure, wait and see. As it currently stands, even when we're on this journey of moving into cloud, there are still some things that we are using on the monolith at the moment. We'll have to see what pops up for the rest of the year in 2027 to see where that goes. But can't give away all the secrets, right?
Absolutely. And kind of following up on that first question, how do you use Unleash to prove your delivery compliance?
So we do slightly different things depending on the area because we have compliance for everything, but different things have different sensitivity and different things
Right.
go to different consumers, right? I think what I can say is what FeatureOps and Unleash gives us allows us to do more testing and do more checks around our compliance before we go live. So
Mhm.
whether it's changing using that experimentation to see different ways that the code comes through to different environments, to different people, involving people from different areas within the bank to be able to look at those things as well to get that sign off. Whereas before, everything was shared. So you had lots of people making changes in the same thing. Whereas now, the product owners and the journeys, they're able to utilize this for themselves and say, right, our compliance level needs to be this. For another journey, our compliance level needs to be this. We need it to be that, and we need it to be that, and we can bring those journeys and do that separately. So FeatureOps allows us to use that experimentation and make sure that we can make sure we're doing the right thing for those areas, and those areas have more autonomy to control
Mhm.
that because of the FeatureOps that we have in place. I hope that answers the questions to the extent that I can answer it anyway.
Absolutely. Daniel, I think with that being said, that was all the questions from the group. Highly attentive, highly engaged group. Thank you everyone so much for all the questions and thoughts here as part of the session. And as we wrap up, Daniel, I just want to take a moment to say thank you. We've enjoyed partnering with you and Lloyd's and being a part of a organization with so much history and so much tradition. It's been such a pleasure to work with you closely on so many different aspects of your Unleash experience. Definitely looking forward to the future and appreciate you taking some time to connect with us today to talk a little bit about your experience.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nick, and thank you for inviting me. It's been great to be here. You know me, I love working with you guys. It's been a fantastic journey, and I'm looking forward to what we do in the future. So, yeah, thank you for everybody that's attended today. You now know who I am. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn and watch this space to see what Lloyds and Unleash do together.
Thank you everyone for joining. Wishing everyone all the best here in the new year. If you have any questions from an Unleash perspective, feel free to reach out to myself as well on LinkedIn. Happy to address any thoughts that any of you have with respect to Unleash. Appreciate the time, everyone.
Brilliant.
Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.